You're listening to
and such a short amount of time to do it in.
a Mamamia podcast.
If you looked at Madeleine West's Instagram 5 years ago, you would have thought she had the perfect life. It sure looked that way by Instagram standards, which we know are pretty damn high. And they're also, as you're about to learn, pretty easy to fake. Back then, Madeleine lived in Melbourne with her then partner, who is a famous celebrity chef. And she was also famous, more famous than him actually. She'd been a proper TV star for decades, with major roles on shows like Neighbours and Satisfaction and Playing for Keeps. And like every good celebrity, Madeleine practiced yoga and she drank green smoothies. She lived in a fabulous house and she also had 6 children. Not just that, but she had written a book about how she managed her incredible home life. It was called 6 Under 8, and it was filled with lunchbox ideas and home hacks. Things like putting your kids to bed in their school uniforms the night before to save time the next morning. I loved that tip.
Lunchboxes, make them the day before. Store them in the fridge, ready-made. So buy 2 sets of their lunchbox. Because if they get different lunchboxes, there's going to be recess rebellion. Buy 2 sets of their lunchbox, stow it all away. So you send them off at 1, and then when you get, at some point during the day when you're handling food, whether it's making lunch for smaller children or doing dinner prep, make the lunchbox for the next day.
And by all accounts, certainly on her Instagram account, she made it all look very easy. If you followed her, you probably thought she was a bit of a superwoman with great hair. Always such great hair. And then one day Madeleine decided to blow it all up. In fact, you might say she hit restart on her whole life. From Mamamia, you're listening to No Filter, a podcast where people from all walks of life tell their stories very candidly and aren't afraid to be vulnerable. My name is Mia Friedman. She sold her fabulous house and she moved to Byron Bay. She left her partner and she dyed her famous blonde hair brown. She did other things too, big things, important things, life-changing things. She restarted. And after a few years, she noticed a trend. Women would come up to her and whisper, "How did you leave? How did you start again? Is it as hard as it looks? Is it worth it?" And that's when Madeleine knew that she had to share her story, even the difficult bits, especially the difficult bits. We could have called this podcast The Difficult Bits, in fact. I spoke to Madeleine West on this podcast for the first time at the end of 2020, and the response to that interview was incredible. And it wasn't even her whole story back then. It was just snippets, because at the end of 2020, she wasn't yet ready to tell her whole story. But when we saw the reaction here at Mamamia, we knew there was something more there that would help other women. Something that Madeleine was noticing as well. So for the past year, we've been secretly working on a new show with Madeleine. It's called Restart. It's a podcast about the moments in life where you have to start over, either by choice or not. Over 10 episodes, you'll follow Madeleine's journey as she speaks to people who've been there and done it. Like Julie Bishop restarting her career post-politics, or Narelda Jacobs, who restarted her life after coming out to her family. I'm going to give you a sneaky preview of the show at the end of this episode, but first, I wanted to ask Madeleine why she needed to blow up her life, what the cost was, and what she's learnt since hitting the detonator. Here's Madeleine West. What made you want to restart your life?
Oh, that is such a good question, because it's hard. I think anyone who has gone through a separation or a divorce could appreciate this. It's really hard to identify any one event or moment. They tend to roll together like a snowball, and suddenly it's just one big powder keg and it all explodes. Actually, no, I do remember one particular incident. My former partner and I were at a dinner party with some friends, in a beautiful house, beautiful food, beautiful wine, beautiful people. And I remember engaging in this really passionate, intense conversation, not about religion or politics or the stock market or it was pre-COVID, so it certainly wasn't about the pandemic. It was about placemats. And we're having this intense conversation about these particular placemats that one of the people at the dinner party wanted to buy, and that describing them, and they were this particular texture, and they're water resistant, they're like golden sparkling, they've got this very fine weave, and you can get them at Fenton, they're fabulous, We're having this really intense, passionate conversation about placemats, and forgive me for digressing, but I remember having almost an out-of-body experience and looking at myself as part of that conversation and thinking, I am a woman of passion, of conviction. I've always had really strong values and really strong beliefs that I've tried so hard to live by. And just to get to where I am has been such a struggle, has involved so much heartbreak and so much sacrifice. And now I am using that passion to talk about placemats. And I had this realisation that who am I? I don't even know who I am anymore, let alone what I am truly passionate about. I'm having a conversation about something I know very little about and care even less about, placemats. Who am I? And I realised, Leah, that I had become a performer. I was acting. I was an actor in my own life. And I was so used to being a strong woman and a woman who vocally supported other women and was all about empowerment and having big dreams, and realised I wasn't living those big dreams anymore.
But isn't that because you had 6 kids and
yes.
You were working as a high-profile actress, you were married to a celebrity chef? Was there a lot of room outside of that? Like, what weren't you doing back then?
I felt like that's precisely it, Mia. I was on the treadmill. I was like a little hamster in a wheel, or like a duck on the pond. It looks very serene and everything's very perfect, but underneath the water, the legs are going a million miles an hour, And I'm not the first person to say this, and I certainly won't be the last, but getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning and doing the yoga and making the breakfasts and getting everyone off to school and everything is perfect, and basically getting up in the morning in preparation for desperately wanting to get back into bed. You wake up and you forge through the day to get everything done to get back into bed. But the space for dreaming big wasn't there anymore, and I started to feel like a fraud.
How much of that is just as a result of having little kids? Like 5 years ago, what was the age range of your kids back then?
Was 11 down to 2.
And 6 kids. You were in the hardcore weeds of it. Like, isn't there a point when you've got little kids at that stage, whether you've got 1 or 6, where you have to lean into that part of your life, and if you try to have the big dreams and try to do all the other things, it just becomes another pressure?
Absolutely, and you do. You have to be aware that I have made this choice. I can rail against it and be bitter about it and feel like there is no space for me, but at the end of the day, it was my choice to be there. And I relished every moment. I did, because I love my children so desperately, and I love the life that we created and the empire we built. But at some point I didn't recognise myself anymore.
Yeah, right.
That for all the things that I was doing, when I looked in the mirror, I didn't see me. I saw a stranger who was, yes, doing all the things, but where was I? Where was my truth? Where was me actually living the life that I told other people to live? You could do this. You have the power. You have the ingenuity. You have the smarts. I truly believed I had that, but I wasn't doing it anymore.
Did you mean to have so many children?
No. They happened. And I don't regret any of them, but sometimes the universe just goes, you think you've got your life in order, have you? Well, try this on for size.
Did you use contraception, Madeleine West?
I did.
Do you know how to use contraception?
Apparently you just stick that there and press that button, and isn't it a matter of like standing on your head and just hoping for the best, or jogging up and down really, really fast?
Did you ever think, I can't do this again? I don't want you to go into specifics of which child and whatever, but I think if we're going to have an honest conversation, not every woman, but many women will get pregnant and at first go, I don't actually know if I can do this one again. And then sometimes they don't and sometimes they do. Did you ever have that thought?
Yeah. And I think every woman has. For me, because I was using contraceptive, I always found out quite late. And I still remember with one of them having a scan for something else because I'd suffered what is called a heteroectopic pregnancy, where I'd fallen pregnant with twins and one was ectopic and went through an horrific process.
That can be life-threatening.
Yeah. Went through a really horrific process to remedy the situation. I hate saying it like that because I lost them both. And going to have a scan to make sure that everything was still in order. And there was a little person in there.
Oh, wow.
And I did not know. And I remember looking at that and thinking, am I ready for this? But having already had children, knowing I know what stage you're at. I know what's coming next. Every little flutter, that little heartbeat, you're already part of me. So I felt like there was no other choice, that I was allowed to have the thought, but in the doing, they were there for a reason, every single one of them.
When you say you looked in the mirror and you were not doing the things that you told other women to do, what were some of those things that you weren't doing? Or was it more just you weren't speaking your truth and you weren't being, assertive within without wanting to probe too much into your marriage? What weren't you doing?
I'd gotten so used to bowing down to what the world at large thought I was.
Which is what?
Which was, yes, being defined by being the blonde chick from Neighbours who married Toadie and died, and being happy for that to be the sum total of who I was, in addition to being, the mother and running around, et cetera, et cetera. But I'd always had quite a strong activist tilt that didn't really fit with the stereotype of how I'd been presented thus far, or how I had chosen to allow myself to be presented.
What were you passionate about?
So
what are you passionate about?
The environment, the rights of women, refugees, writing my truth that was sometimes inconvenient, and having a voice, having a platform. And I wanted to demonstrate that it was possible to reinvent yourself, that if you've been strictly trapped within this hidebound stereotype of what you are, which is often in correlation to what people expect you to be, you can break that framework. And it's not going to be easy, but I'm not going to put my hand up and go, now everything is perfect. Every step of the way is difficult. Divorce is bitterly painful.
What do you wish you'd have known about divorce before you embarked on it?
I wish I'd known that it's not the perfect solution. Perfection is a lie. It's a lie that we're fed as much as the notion that women told we can have it all.
What did you think divorce was going to do for you?
I thought that it would be the answer to my dissatisfaction with myself. At the end of the day, my dissatisfaction with myself was with myself, with the role that I was playing in the relationship, with the role that I was playing in my workplace, the role that I was playing in the world at large. It was dissatisfaction with myself. And I wish I'd been a better communicator and perhaps, if I'm honest, more willing to listen, to just really listen, to tune in, not just in my personal life but in my work life, to be more willing to open up those difficult conversations rather than just accepting that what I was told was the truth, in the sense that in your work life there's expectations of you and, okay, well, you need to do this in order to do that, rather than having but why, rather than saying but why.
Like, what are some of those expectations?
This lie that we're fed that we can have it all and do it all. But understanding, when I first started having children, it was absolutely impossible to have a career in the entertainment industry and still have small children and balance them both. That environment was not conducive to motherhood. It's not conducive to the hours and the requirements that are placed on you as a mother. You can't go into a contract meeting to go onto a big show and say, oh, I'm going to need to start at this time and I need to be finished at this time so I can do school pickup. And it puts in all these exponential stresses. So I think I'd gotten into a habit of just saying, well, that's how it's going to be, and so I'll just stay zip and I will just suffer. I will be the one who suffers to make sure that everyone else is happy, that the workplace is happy, that the family is happy, rather than just going, but this just doesn't
So you lost
work
yourself.
for me. I lost myself.
Is that because you kind of felt, these things are so ingrained, aren't they? When you don't have to work for the money, there's a sense that you shouldn't work, particularly if you've got so many children. I imagine people often will say to you, what are you doing this for,
Yes, absolutely.
Your husband was very successful in his business that you no doubt built together, his restaurant empire. So did you feel guilty for I don't have to do this, but it fulfills me creatively, and why is that not enough?
Absolutely. Every second of every day. And guilt on so many levels. And I think that any woman, anyone who is balancing family life and work life would appreciate that sense of, I am guilty no matter where I am. I'm guilty when I'm at home because I feel like I'm too tired to be properly invested and get on the floor and play Lego with my kids. I'm guilty because when I'm at work, I'm constantly on alert, waiting from that call from the kindergarten to say, oh, your child's sick, come pick them up. So I feel like I'm not giving 100% anywhere. I feel like I'm diluting myself down in every sphere of my life. So of course there was a sense of guilt, but like you say, where do I feel like I'm really myself? Where is my happy place? And how do I step into that and own that without feeling guilt?
Some people would imagine that if you are financially successful and comfortable, you could throw money at that problem and you could have nannies and you could have cleaners and you could have chefs and you could have drivers. And that might be true, that might not be true. Is that something that you did? And if you did it make it easier?
We never looked at really bringing in staff, in inverted commas. That sounds like a slightly derogatory term, and I don't mean it that way.
But with 6 kids and 2 big full-time high-profile careers, no one could blame. Isn't it funny that internalized guilt and sheepishness we have about asking for help?
You'd hit the nail on the head. I didn't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
I felt like if I can have them, I can take care of them. I can do all the things. I can do the Instagram-worthy lunchboxes and I can do the drop-offs and the pickups. And I still remember when I had my son, I went back to work on Satisfaction when he was 5 weeks old because I was under a contract.
And you were playing a sex worker?
I was playing a sex worker with nude scenes, sex scenes, which some of it was hilarious, like the time I lactated all over a white sheeted silk bed and it mixed with my fake tan. It looked like someone had squirted a chocolate Big M all over the bed. That was fetching. But I would work all day, 16, 17-hour days, because that's what I was used to as an actor. That is how I gauged professionalism, that, I am so lucky to have this job that I am going to sacrifice myself on the altar of professionalism every day that I'm on set. And then I'd come home and feel so guilty for not being with him that I'd stay up all night and feed him. So I was not sleeping. And all I did was make myself unhappy everywhere I was rather than asking for support in what I needed because I was so determined to prove that I can do it all. Look at me. I am that logo. I can do it all. At the end, like I said earlier, it's a lie that we're fed that we can do it all because we shouldn't have to. And
how's your pelvic floor?
Let's just say there was a period there where I was considering doing circus school that involved trampolining. That ended pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I wet myself.
Of course you did.
Totally wet myself. Just whooshed, the floodgates opened. I do a fair bit of exercises. I've done a lot of Kegels.
I'm doing them now.
You're doing them right now?
Now that you've just said that.
Everyone, she's lifting her eyebrows in a very suggestive manner. I think she's enjoying it.
You're meant to do them without lifting your eyebrows. That's not technically the way you do
really?
them.
Well, I'm sorry, you're lifting your eyebrows. But there is a thing called the egg that you can, here we go, you can stick up, and do the, I love goop.
Well, I'm going to get to sex in a second. But I want to ask, when you decided to leave your marriage, was it a slow dawning realisation or was it a lightning bolt?
There were all sorts of factors that played into that. It would take years and probably a very good psychologist to pick them all apart. But there was definitely a point of knowing there is no going back. And to this day, on so many levels, I feel like a failure for not fulfilling the happy ever after paradigm. For my kids to have had to go through and every day live that. There is such an expectation that a family is a mum and a dad and kids. And we know that there are all sorts of flavours and a rainbow of varieties of what it can represent. But we do still, at the very base, have quite a limited view of what it can be. And all I can hope is for my kids that they see me in the best possible light, because when I have them, for my half of the time, they are my only focus. Nothing else. Nothing else comes into view. I won't let anything else in, even to the point of limiting social interactions and stuff. So it's just us. And then when I work, I focus exclusively on my work. Of course, I'll have phone calls with them and we'll exchange messages, or if there's a dentist appointment, of course.
Do they go back and forth as a group?
Yes, they do.
So it's 6,
yes.
a pack.
I think it's absolutely
They're a package
critical.
deal.
They are a package deal. They are a 6-pack. I think that's really important because they play off each other. They are a little community unto themselves. And that is one of the blessings of having a big family, that there is no sense of entitlement because they all have to be responsible for each other.
What are the logistics of that like? Do they do like a week with their dad and then a week with you and then a week with their dad? I'm just imagining like school books and gym clothes and how do you manage it?
Kids go through so much stuff so quickly that invariably you're just safest to go for the 2-for-1 deal everywhere. Just divide it down the middle.
Right. So they don't have to pack bags every time they're going between houses.
No. And there's trying to create different environments. So there's a sense of kids always need security and constant, consistency. But there are certain attributes of being in my home that are different from being in the old home. So there's a bit of variety.
Glennon Doyle, I don't know if you've read her book Untamed,
Yes.
when she talks a lot, I imagine you resonated with that because she talks about feeling overwhelmed and underwhelmed in her marriage at the same time, and then knowing that she is leaving a marriage that's fine for everyone except her, and choosing herself over her children having that preserved nuclear family. How did you make peace with that?
I don't know if I'll ever make peace with it. I think it would be a lie again to say there's been a peaceful resolution. And harking back to what I said earlier, that no one should go into any of those kind of life-changing experiences expecting that there will not be challenges ahead, because that's life. Every challenge that is thrown at you, you've got a choice to retreat or to persevere. And if you persevere, you're going to learn something about yourself, you're going to learn something about life, and you're going to evolve. That is the nature of our evolutionary past, that we were confronted with new information, new challenges, and therefore we developed. We went up to the next level. It's like a promotion, a life promotion. It's certainly not all roses. And at times I thought that, well, this is the solution. If I do this, everything's going to be okay. Of course, it's not going to be okay. But what I have realised is that the me that I am now is truer to the me that I've fantasized about. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like Glennon Doyle saying overwhelmed and underwhelmed, but ostensibly feeling like you're invisible in your own life because you are so present in it that it's like you're the bowl of fruit that sits on the table that everyone walks past and might grab an apple or a banana, but you're just there. And what happens the day that that bowl of fruit's not there? And the kids walking through the house go, I wanted a banana. Where's the Oh, okay, what am I going to do now? So I'd hate to use the word doormat, but I'm very visible in my children's lives now and in the lives of my friends and my family, that what I do now has so much value to me, and I'm so proud of what I've achieved and the legacy that I'm leaving for my kids. I don't feel like just a bowl of fruit, but I feel really fruitful.
So you left the marriage. That was the first part of your restart. Would you say that? That was sort of kicked it all off.
Yes.
Then what did you do?
Well, made the move to Byron Bay and
From Melbourne?
Yes.
Why there? Why Byron?
Well, we'd always planned to be in Byron. It was the ideal holiday house. And so we'd built up here, and there is something quite magical about Byron. You know that yourself. It is such
Lots
a place.
of people want to live there, but not many people actually go and live there.
Well, and a lot of people will say that you can't really live there forever. It's designed to be a transit point that our First Nations people would come through to have their babies in the sacred lakes, or, to feed on the tropical fruits and then keep moving. It was always a waypoint, never a stop spot, never an end zone. So when you go up there, it is a place to be transformed and changed and to restart. And what you then choose to do with that is entirely up to you. So for a lot of people like yourself and me, we do move back and forth. Like I find myself going interstate quite a lot for different jobs and have been lucky to discover things that I didn't even know I was capable of. And that's been the gift of being in Byron because I've been exposed
Like
to
what?
experiences. Well, I regenerate rainforests now.
Of course you do.
Now, I'm sorry, but back in my living in the hoity-toity suburbs of Melbourne and working as an actor and, you know, fine dining and soirees with friends and weekends on yachts to planting 4,000 trees in a day with a bunch of people from all walks of life. And this is what I find hilarious. I was saying this to friends. So I'm down here today. I'm in gorgeous Sydney, staying in a beautiful hotel in these gorgeous Mamamia studios. It's fabulous. In Sydney. Got plans with friends, beautiful dinners, dining,
Dressing
etc.,
all in
etc.
your city clothes.
I've got city clothes on that require
Yes.
ironing.
Yes.
Mia, ironing.
You've got your eyelash
Maybe
extensions.
dry
It's all
cleaning.
happening.
I've got my lashes done.
Yeah.
I dried my hair with I blow dried my hair this
noticed,
morning.
thank you.
Put makeup on. I'd like to make an effort. But I'll get back and I've got 2 days to pack a house. So I'm going to do that by myself. I'm going to pack a house. 'cause
Where
I'm
are you
gonna be
packing it
moving.
to?
I'm moving from one side of Byron to the other because I've finally bought my own house. But then on the Monday, I'm driving out to the middle of nowhere in Casino, camping in the back of my car for a week to plant a koala sanctuary with chemical toilets. I don't even know if the chemical toilets are going to be there. We might just
I don't
be
even know what a
using
chemical
bush.
toilet is, and please don't tell me.
Okay, it's something that you usually
No,
see at
please
musical
don't, yeah.
festivals. Okay, we'll extract that. Backtrack.
Yeah,
They're not pleasant.
wow.
So that kind of
Dichotomy living
of
between different
experience
worlds.
is so rich and something I never in my wildest dreams would have thought I would be doing. But if I fantasized about myself, the younger me, that's the kind of world I wanted to create, where the things that I stood for, I was an active participant in making happen. I think that's important. A lot of us who have the blessing of working in the industry and have an opportunity for espousing a cause are very good at going along to openings and wearing the T-shirt and putting their face to something. But to actually do the work, that's different. The environment, for example. We're pretty good at making shiny, bright posters about the state of climate change and the future that we're creating for our children.
Also hashtags. We also
we
do a
love
lot of
hashtags.
Yeah, that's
But to
helping.
go out there and actually plant a forest and go, wow, in 10 years that's going to be capable of sustaining native flora and fauna. In 20 years, that's going to be capable of retarding a bushfire. In 40 years, that's going to be a fully fledged rainforest. And that's going to be here forever.
When you first had sex with someone after
Jesus.
having 6 children, it's
I
called
blushing?
No Filter. You
It's
know
called
you know what you were coming in for. And
can
I
I have
feel
a
like
gin,
you
please?
have a sip of
A
your
double?
smoothie. The first time you had sex with someone after having 6 kids who wasn't your husband,
Yeah.
what was that like? Like in your head?
In my head.
Yeah.
Before I did anything.
You'd spent a lot of years with only one man seeing you naked. Within a marriage, your body almost becomes a little bit something else. It
Yep.
belongs to your children. I won't say it belongs to your husband because, of course, it doesn't. But it becomes a thing of not much mystery.
Kind of like a public playground, you know?
That's exactly what it is.
Bouncing
it's a
off
public
you. They've
facility.
had to go swung off something. You know?
You've got people coming in your vagina, people going out of your vagina.
It's like one of those tunnels,
busy.
you know, the slides.
Exactly.
You know, whoosh, there
Lot
goes
of
another one.
traffic.
Tell me about it. I've had 6 kids. I mean, seriously.
So then how did you, when I say prepare, like what were the feelings that you had about doing that for the first time?
I was terrified. There was no sense of, oh, I'm just going to do myself up and wear some sexy lingerie and some makeup. I couldn't conceive that it would happen again because my immediate thought was, I'm never going to be good enough. You know, I know I'm an attractive woman. I've done a gazillion sex scenes and I think I started to envision how to perform like a woman half my age. Does that sound ridiculous?
So how old were you when this was about
Late
to start
30s.
happening? Late 30s.
And thinking, am I going to – is there an expectation? If I meet someone, will they go home and Google me and see me on Satisfaction or Underbelly and the stuff that I got up to there? Is that what their expectation's going to be? Because that's not what I'm into. Yeah. Do I even know what I'm into anymore? What do I want? I'm so confused. And so really, honestly, had no idea what to expect and couldn't even begin to plan what that would be like or feel like. And, you know, in our late 30s, us women were hitting our sexual peaks.
Yeah.
You know your body better, and that's the discovery. The perception is, and a very dear friend said to me once, you got to remember that young girls are amazing, but they're like ice cream. They're sweet and yummy and delicious, but an older woman is like a fine wine and a cheese platter. It's something to be savoured and enjoyed. And you can't eat bowl after bowl of ice cream, but you can have a lot of cheese and crackers.
You really can.
You can have a lot of cheese and crackers. And I have to admit, the first time I had sex, I think I acted probably like a bit of a porn star, like once again, actor, performing, and it wasn't great, but that gorgeous person kind of, I think, knew that this was my first foray back into that sensual realm, and I had a really important realisation at the end of that, and that is that I am my sexiest when I am just being me. And that comes with a body that I'm very proud to say has given birth to 6 children and works really hard and strives to stay fit in a healthy and meaningful way, but still knows how to have a good time and enjoys good food. So I brought all of that to the table, and I got to say, I've enjoyed it ever since.
I imagine there are a lot of difficult things about going through a divorce in the public eye, but one of the things that I imagine would be good about it is that everybody knows that you're available. You know, like you don't have to actively go out there. Like, did people come out of the woodwork, maybe people that you'd had little, you know, flirtations with over the years, or people you'd never even knew were interested in you?
There was a lot of, you know, if anything got posted or was in our best friend, the Daily Mail, you know, there would be questions on Instagram or et cetera, that very faceless reach out. But I also...
Do you mean people sliding into your DMs?
Sliding into my DMs.
People you knew that would slide into your DMs?
Not so much people I knew, just people who were...
Randos,
complete randos.
Yeah, no,
I didn't have anyone. And I think a lot of people were respectful of the energy that I was carrying around that my first priority was my kids and getting life back on track. I've never dated, Mia. I didn't know how to do it. I've never done online dating, certainly. I know that was an option. It's like, should we try that?
Did you do that? Did you go on the apps?
I didn't go on the apps. I thought about it.
How did you pop your cherry?
How did I? Well, it was completely by chance in the environmental sphere. Being introduced, I started
Very sexy,
out.
those trees.
Oh, very sexy trees. They know everything. They store a lot of knowledge. It was...
You're blushing.
I am blushing.
I've never seen... Is this who you're with now?
Yes.
You are blushing. I've never seen you anything other than quite direct and...
That's because I live in Byron and I wear far less foundation. Usually I've got lots of foundation on. That's why you can't see me blushing.
But you've gone all gooey.
Have I gone all gooey?
Yes.
Am I melting? Should I be wearing pastel
Your
pink right now?
Your eyes are like all like bright.
Am I going doe-eyed?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll unpack it. So what happened was I had started planting trees when I moved to Byron. I did offset my kids' carbon for their travels, and then I got on the Carbonify carbon calculator and I offset all of my carbon. And I decided I want to get involved with an organisation that plants trees. So I started doing that and meeting different groups, and then I got introduced to a gentleman who specialised in rainforest tree regeneration.
A gentleman?
A gentleman, an older gentleman. And he said to me, look, why don't you come along to one of our plantings and you can meet the CEO of the organisation. So I arrived and was directed to the top of this incredible rainforest-covered slope in Gooningary. And there was a man at the top of the slope just looking down, hands on hips. And I just went, yes. And I jogged up that hill and... the rest is history.
What did you know in that moment?
I just knew that there was something about that energy, that sense of integrity with the way this person that carried himself that was so attractive, and it went beyond notions of fame or wealth or notoriety or even the sense of boxes being ticked. I think that it's very easy for us to kind of qualify people by how many boxes they tick for us. And we do it in our friendships and we do it in our workplaces and we certainly do it in our romantic interactions. And I reckon there's a danger there that the more boxes you start requiring to be ticked, the less plausible it is to meet the right person, that you just have to take a chance and throw yourself in the deep end. And that's, I think, what I was scared of about the whole dating online thing, that, you know, you put your profile up and I like this and I like that and it'll be matched with someone. It's like, I don't really want to meet my doppelganger. I don't want to meet the male counterpart of
There's
me.
some kismet involved.
There's got to be some kismet. And all my relationships, my successful relationships in the past have been someone that I've just chanced upon and didn't look at it as a romantic enterprise. Just, this is someone who I think is really cool. And invariably we'd spend more and more time with each other, and a couple of months down the track you'd go, oh, we're kind of in a relationship. So there was no placing of labels. It was just about being open. And I think that was the case with Maximo. When I met him, there was no boxes to be ticked, just meeting him and getting to know him and seeing his earnestness and how much he cared about his cause and his passion, his self-belief, his belief in himself and that what he was doing was right was possibly the most attractive thing I've ever met. And there was nothing bombastic or egotistical about it. It was just that I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. And it's the right thing to do for me.
Is he your age?
No, he's younger than me.
How much younger?
A couple of years.
Not that much.
Not that much.
Negligible.
Negligible.
Had he been married before and does he have kids?
No.
And what did he know of you when he met you?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Because, as I said earlier, why would you think you'd find an actor who is associated with wealth and luxury and a certain kind of life standing on the side of a muddy rainforest-covered hill in Goonageri wearing work boots and
Ready to muck in.
ready to muck in? Would never happen. So it took him a while to realise who I was, and for a while he went, I can't correlate the two. And I said, that's okay, because I'm not who I was then.
You were restarting.
I've restarted.
What bits have you taken with you? I mean, your children, obviously.
Yep, that old thing. What else have I taken with me? Let me see. There's a
6 small
sofa.
people. Yeah.
There's a couple of nice cushions I couldn't let go of. What have I taken with
What
me?
parts of you have you taken with you into this restart?
My passion, which is as undiminished. It just, for a little while, had an umbrella on it. And now it's, here we go. I'm going to go a bit woo-woo. There's no healing crystals or dream catchers involved, okay?
You can.
Just prepare yourself.
This is a safe space,
So,
Madeleine.
really? Thank you. Thank you.
No judgment.
No judgment and no filter. Just keep reminding me of that before I open my trap. I think we're all born like a pure white light. Our integrity is undiminished. And it's the prism that we're born into, the world that we're born into, our socioeconomic reality, our parents, the food we're given to eat, the education that we're provided, the influences in our life that determine how that colour will diffuse. You know, whether just a few shades of who you are become apparent, or whether you're in the perfect scenario that allows you to give you a full rainbow. Or for some people, life is just too hard and that poor white light is just refracted straight out and they just step away from life, and that happens. But for me, there have been a few factors that I didn't have an easy upbringing. I fought tooth and nail to get to where I was in the world.
Do you still have contact with your parents?
I do. Now, it's taken a long time to get to this point. But I do believe that there are a couple of factors that didn't let me be all that I was. I willingly let those factors into my life, like we all do. But when you come to realise...
Can you be more specific without me prying? When you say there are factors that didn't let you be who you were.
Well, like I said earlier...
Were they beliefs or...
Not even so much my beliefs, but when you position yourself in the world in a certain way, there is a perception that that is all you are. So, for example, when I finished school, I studied law, but then went on to become a soap actor and very happily dived into the inverted commas blonde bimbo stereotype and utilised it to get my career to where I wanted it to be, or at least kickstart it. But then that limited the other side of me, the notion that I could be an intellect, and have in-depth conversations about philosophy and law and literature.
So you felt trapped by that image.
Correlate.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think we often feel that our identity is limited to the way that we present, whether we're a mum or the CEO of a business, or whether we're a bit of a leftist hippie or, a political stalwart. We position ourselves in a certain way and our full spectrum is not apparent. And now I try to live a life that allows my whole rainbow to shine.
You look like a woman who's having good sex. I'm just going to put that out there.
What makes you say that? I'm not smoking a cigarette.
There's just something about you. You just seem like you are having good sex. Yeah. Care to confirm or deny? I'll take that as you can take that as a comment. Just finally, the podcast.
Yep.
Like, I'm so happy. Yes, success in all its myriad ways. And now you've got a podcast. Is it about you? What's it about? I should know.
What? It's with Mamamia.
I know.
Mamamia herself does not know.
But the thing is, I know that we're doing a podcast with you and I know that you're amazing and we've been talking about this for a long time, but because I trust so implicitly you and all the fine people here that you're working with, I am not across the inner details of it. So this is as much news to me as it is to everyone listening. Tell me.
Well, it's called Restart.
Yeah, I knew that.
And it was, there you go. She's got, that's all you need to know. End of story. Good night. It's about, and I certainly don't come at it as an expert of the restart. I'm coming to it as someone who is still right in the middle of my restart.
You're a
and
student
restart,
of it, right?
I am a student of restart. Oh, that's the perfect phrase, a student of restart. And I want to know how to do it well and why people restart, because it helps me. And one thing I have found in my own restarts in myriad spheres of my life, so many people approach me and say, how did you do that? Like, how did you go from there to there? How do you navigate that? How? I'm like, well, if you're asking me that and I'm asking that of the universe at large, there's a lot of people out there, particularly women, who are going, how do I restart this? Whether it's I'm living through or I'm approaching or I'm on the other side of a divorce. How do I restart my life? I'm having a cataclysmic health crisis. How do I restart my life? I have decided that career does not fit me at all. I want to completely recreate myself. How do I restart? I don't think I'm actually heterosexual. I want to explore other territory. How do I restart that? Yeah. Or perhaps most importantly, I don't really know who I am or how I should be. How do I find who I should be? And what is my purpose? I thought my reason for being on this planet was to be a mum or to work in this position or to be this or to be that. And suddenly I've realised that maybe it's not. So how do I restart that? And the best way to learn is from other people's stories. And so that's what we do. Each of the 10 episodes touches on something I have lived through, so have some experience of, but I'm not an expert of, but I'm there to go, yep, been there, done that, seen that, and bring in people who have lived it or who are experts in the field to answer those tricky questions that we would never even feel comfortable asking our best friend. Like you said, what do you do when you're thinking about having sex for the first time? Or what do you do when your whole sense of self is built around the career that you're in?
Like when your children leave home. Like
yes,
I found
the empty nest.
Yeah, I found my children growing up to be really pivotal in that sense of restart, because it's kind of like, I heard someone describe it once as you go from being a manager to being a consultant. And that's a big shift. And what it does is that it frees up space and identity and time for you, but often that can come as a bit of a shock.
Absolutely.
As they all pull away from you and you're like, oh, I know I felt like a bit suffocated when they were little and clambering and can we just have an hour where nobody touches mummy? But even daddy, especially daddy. But when they get older and they just pull away from you, that can be devastating and also really disorienting. And then when they leave home and then perimenopause and all of those things, I can't wait to listen to this.
It's so exciting. And what shocks me is that how, like, as you're on your restart, you think, well, that's finished. But no, it's just the beginning. And what shocks me every time I sit down to chat with these incredible women, these incredible people who've lived through some cataclysmic life experiences, is that how present it still is in my life day to day. For example, we did a recording about friendship. And today, my best friend is getting on a plane and moving to Miami with her family. She's slipping through my fingers. And the fact that we were talking about friendship in that moment.
Friendships often need a big restart around this time.
And it's something that we often forget, that friendship is just something that's just there when we're children. You're on a swing with someone and you look at them and go, do you want to be my friend? And that's it. But as we get older, it's really hard to rebuild. You can have a network of friends, but a best friend, that's a part of divorce, you know. We're splitting the assets? Are we also splitting the friendship pool? That it's really hard, and especially for women who are so used to not asking for help, to not reaching out and saying, this is what I need. And like you said earlier, the empty nest syndrome, a big part of that is never allowing yourself, always sacrificing yourself on the altar of motherhood, to not holding your own identity, your own sense of self as a treasure that deserves to be acknowledged and built, and a gem that deserves to be polished. That if you can listen into this podcast and still create things for yourself, opportunities, a sense of self, my goodness, when you get to that end of the line, when they all leave, you're there. You are still there. You are there with yourself. You can be your own best friend. And that's one thing I taught my kids from a young age, that, as I said, I did feel like I was a bit lost for a while. That I made a point when they would say, I don't want you to go to work, or why are you doing this, or why are you doing that? I would say, well, I'm mum, and that's the best thing ever. But I'm also Madeleine, who's an actor, and Madeleine who likes to write, and Madeleine who has friends, and Madeleine who does this. And I have to give a bit of oxygen to all those Madeleines to be the best Madeleine I can be. And then I'm the best mum. So that's taught them to respect the different parts that make up a whole, because we are a sum of our different parts. And if we can give energy to all those parts and not neglect any of them, then we can do anything. Anything.
You are a gem. I'm so glad that you're polishing yourself in the way that you are. But it's true, because I was going to go, I'm so glad you're being polished. But it's like, no, you're polishing yourself. That's what Restart is about.
That's what
it's about. Not being a passenger. It's about grabbing the polishing cloth and giving yourself a bit of a rub. God, I've tortured that.
That sounded so wrong. So wrong that it was right. But it's so true, and we are all capable of a restart. The only thing that stops us is ourselves.
I love it. What a beautiful note to end on. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Especially for the rubbing analogy.
You are having good sex.
I'm taking that one home.
You are having good sex. It shows. Thank you for listening to this episode of No Filter. Remember, this podcast isn't just about her. It's a show about all kinds of women who've decided to restart their lives for so many different reasons. Sometimes they've restarted it because it was their choice to do so. Other times it's because circumstances have been thrust upon them that they never would have imagined, and they had no option but to start again, whether it was their friendship group or their career or their health or their sex life. It is such a fantastic podcast for anyone who's feeling a little bit stuck or who is dealing with an unexpected curveball. Here's a sneak peek.
Once upon a time, I used to wake up at 5 a.m. every single day. I'd do yoga, maybe have a green juice, and wake up my 6 kids. I'd go through the rhythms of getting them off to where they needed to be. Did my best to be the perfect busy working parent and tried to get through the day until I could get the kids back into bed. I'd work, I'd create, I'd act. I even wrote a book about how to be organised when you have 6 kids under 8. And then I split up with my partner of 15 years and the father of my kids. It was time for a restart. My name is Madeleine West. I'm an actor, an activist, an author and a mum. And I'm also the host of a new podcast called Restart. It's about making a new beginning, a revision, a renewal, if you will, one that's often necessary and always life-changing. For 10 weeks, Restart will look into why more and more women are pressing refresh on their lives and how the hell they've done it. From a writer who's been on 138 dates in 1 year.
I would say out of the 138 first dates, 60% of them I probably didn't hear from again.
To Julie Bishop, walking away from political power play
Don't look back, don't look at the past, don't spend time regretting what you could or couldn't have done, and embrace your new life.
To the comedian whose marriage dissolved overnight.
I'd been with my ex-husband for about 22 years. I thought he was it forever. And then one night I was getting together my daughter's book day costume. So I picked up a blazer and I thought, oh, that'll do. You know, I'm going with the contemporary sort of David Tennant theme.
Yeah.
In the pocket was a love letter, and it was not from me. It was from somebody else.
To Narelda Jacobs, who, despite receiving consistent rejection for being her true self, has discovered that kindness and love are still critical components of her identity.
I mean, Mum cried and she said, how long has this been going on? And I said, 3 years. And she said, well, that's a lot to undo, isn't it? In fact, she said, you know, I'll never be able to accept this, but I'll always love you.
To me. Restart. It's never too late to change everything. Coming soon to a podcast app near you.
The assistant producer of No Filter is Lucy Neville, and the executive producer is Eliza Ratliff. I'm Mia Friedman, and if you want more of us in your life, come and visit the Mamamia app. And just by reading or listening to our content, just by listening to this podcast today, you are helping to fund girls in schools in some of the most disadvantaged countries in the world. Through our partnership with Room to Read, we're currently sending 300 girls to school every single day, and our aim is to get to 1,000 and then 10,000. Because at Mamamia, our core purpose is to make the world a better place for women and girls.
Mamamia acknowledges the traditional owners of the land we have recorded this podcast on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures.